to download a show. Hello haters, yes and friends of bosses, man. To download a show. Hello haters, yes and friends of bosses.
Hey guys, good to see you. Let me get it over here to the comments. All right, hey y'all. Good to see everyone here. Hey. All right. We have a really neat show tonight. I'm excited about it. I truly am, and I think that I think all of you are going to enjoy it also. But right now, let's get over the announcements. Hey, Patty, good to see you. Okay. All right, let's see. Announcements. We cannot forget our campouts coming up. The Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project campout at Michaud State Forest, April 24th through the 27th. That is in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. And you're going to have to join the group. If you're not already a member of our Facebook group, Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, all of the information is in there as to the exact location of the campout. But everyone's welcome. You'll need to make reservations. So get in the group and look at the events section, and you'll find all the information on our campout. We have another campout coming up in June 19th through the 22nd. That is in the Allegheny National Forest. And again, for the exact location, you will need to join the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project group on Facebook. Go into the events section, and that'll give you all the information. Any other campouts and etc., all the information will be in the group. But we're in the planning stages for other campouts, so just hold on. Let's see. I will be speaking at the Forest County Bigfoot Festival. That is in Marionville, Pennsylvania, June 6, 7, and 8. I'll have a booth set up. I am scheduled to speak June 7, that's Saturday, at 11 a.m. And there's a bunch more festivals and conferences, a few that I'll be at, possibly. A few more that I'll be speaking at. I'm kind of backing off on things like that this year because quite possibly this may be my last year of attending festivals, or as a vendor and speaking and so on. So it's just getting too exhausting for me, and I just can't do it anymore. So that's my official announcement on that. Okay, so tonight we have a special guest. His name is J.P. Fournier. Hopefully, JP, that I've pronounced your name correctly. You'll have to correct me whenever I get you on here. JP is the co-founding director of Seeking Ontario's Bigfoot. They are a nonprofit federal corporation in Canada. So welcome, JP.
Well, thank you for having me, Mary.
Thank you. So JP, I've known JP since 2018, I think it was, whenever I first
2018, yes.
Yeah. We had a mutual friend who was a member of my team who has since kind of backed away from everything involving Bigfoot. But JP has hung on, and we have researched together and become good friends. So JP is fantastic, good-humored, and I really have to get back up into Canada. I truly do, because your area sounds fantastic up there.
Well, down in your neck of the woods, it's actually a lot more road accessible, the supposed hot spots, if you will, than in southern Ontario, central Ontario. And there's a whole lot of private property, and that really is the holdback or the drawback, if you will, to accessing new sites or sites with activity.
Yeah, that's always the problem right there.
And then there's always the perceived social aspect of, I have something strange on my property. People want to keep that kind of close to the chest, if you will.
Yes.
And so, it's very rare that somebody reaches out, as had happened, for our group down in your neck of the woods in Pennsylvania. And then this particular family group reaching out to us and for the last 3 years having allowed us, unfettered access to their property.
I know it's been a fantastic opportunity, on that property, and just amazing activity there. Todd has been here on the show a few times, sharing photos and so on of, what the activity has been there with handprints and so on the windows. But your forte is a little bit different. You go more towards the visual, the game cameras, and
I prefer imagery. I spent the last year and a half with 5 audio moth units, specially designed wildlife monitoring, audio monitoring, or recorders out in the bush. And it just takes any enjoyment in this pursuit right out of it, because, you're getting, if you're lucky, 12 days on a set of batteries, and that's 24-hour continuous recording. And one, I'm not listening to it all, so I'm utilizing a software program called Audacity and just looking for different wavelengths, or if somebody's going, on this date at this time-ish period, then I can zero in on it. Right? But it's a labor of love for someone, but that someone is not me. But I'm willing to sit there and, on a time lapse camera with 7, 8 of them on a particular property, and
Mhm.
go through, in many cases north of 100,000 images.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I've seen you sitting at the table, while
Yes.
just scrolling through 10,000 photos, and that's just one little file.
Yeah,
And
it's just the
moving
one
on to the
camera.
next.
But
But
yeah, it's a pursuit, right? It's
it is.
as I've heard it before and said it before, hiking with a purpose, camping with a purpose, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And there's if you're looking for stuff out of the ordinary, oftentimes it presents itself. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, in my experience, unless and until you point it out, it's just like it's almost unseen,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that, well, first, tell us about your area up in Canada. You're in Ontario, correct?
Yeah, well, Ontario, and one of the properties of two I have access to are in central Ontario, so about 2 hours east of Toronto, where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's this one particular property is about 88 acres, and a lot of it is green belt. The
Mm-hmm.
other aspect of it is rolling hills and fields,
Oh,
and there's no shortage of wildlife in the swamp that's on the property, and deer and fisher, big black bear, big timber wolves. It's
no
you know
thanks.
obviously raccoons, and not that many squirrels, oddly enough, but
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
turkey, lots of turkey. Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever
Yeah, so
there's
yeah,
Bigfoot,
there's no shortage of food in
no,
northern North America. There's no shortage of food.
no, absolutely not. And I've noticed that where Bigfoot is, the squirrels seem to be a little bit sparse.
Yeah.
And must be the younger ones, the younger Bigfoot, climbing up and going after the nests or something.
Okay, it could very
Perhaps.
well be, like, in two conservation areas in southern Ontario. We copyrighted the phrase in Canada, Bigfoot. They're closer than you, because you're going to conservation areas that are right next to, a city of 750,000 people.
Yeah,
And it's well trafficked, and you get off the trail, and,
yeah,
I suggest get off the trail. And
yeah.
you find all sorts of interesting stuff. But in one particular conservation area, it was like 8 mice had been squeezed, and they were just thrown onto the road.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and then when we stopped a conservation employee there, well, I don't know, was his response. He was, how would you say, a study in a lack of curiosity.
A purposeful lack of curiosity.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, our
So
mutual friend, she worked for the Canadian. What did you call that?
she was with the Ministry of Environment, and she had done a lot of work in the field, studying bears, as well as doing an inventory of the population in a particular area. And
Mhm.
then the last I had, any genuine contact with her before she left the field of pursuit. She was a wildlife officer for one of the First Nations or
Yeah,
Indian bands out here in southern Ontario.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She is sorely missed. Very, very sorely missed.
Yeah.
Very intelligent
And,
lady.
and excellent bushcraft skills.
Oh my, yes.
Yeah.
I was so impressed by her skills. Yeah, I told everyone that, there's a TV show called Alone. I don't on
Oh yeah,
History.
she'd do well.
Yeah, she would have rocked that no problem.
Yep.
Absolutely no problem. And but She unfortunately had a bad experience with probably a Bigfoot. And
Well, on Seeking Ontario Bigfoot's YouTube page, she does recount that
really,
experience while she was bow hunting, and yeah, it blew out her eardrum.
yeah.
And I think it was 2 months after the event, we actually went down and recorded her where she had sat, in the early morning hours when that event happened. And literally about 25 yards, 30 yards behind the tree that she had her back to was another tree right next to a stream, or, a stream, not a river, a stream running through that particular tract. And there were, like, I got to back up. But there were 2 large, deep impressions in the mud, right? But no detail at the bottom because of, the length of time. But I was like, because she had heard, I'm of an age now where I suffer from sometimers, if you will, but I think she was hunkered down for about half an hour or so. And then when she moved, that's when that animal gave out that loud, piercing yell that, encouraged her to get out of there.
Yeah, burst your eardrum, and unfortunately that just ruined the whole thing. And she backed away.
And this was a person that was open to the possibility. I genuinely feel sorry for lifetime outdoors people that have, dismissed the possibility of this animal out there, and then they have their encounter, and they never ever go back.
Yeah, that's true. Now, you do have a YouTube channel, Seeking Ontario's Bigfoot. So I encourage everyone to go there. And they also have a website.
That's right, Seeking Ontario's Bigfoot.
And it's, as you see on your T-shirt there, the 3 letters SOB.
Yeah, that's trademarked. That's trade named. We're legal SOBs.
Okay.
Well, one of the reasons we, named ourselves Seeking Ontario's Bigfoot, and the acronym SOB was, should we ever achieve any notoriety, and that's not what we're in this for, if you will, that would be the most pleasant thing the detractors would call us, right?
Was a bunch of SOBs. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man. So what all have you found up there? And also I wanted to ask you, there's can't remember the name of that park where the Beast of Seven shoots. Isn't that?
Is that related up to Temagami area? Like, it's going to be Beast of Seven shoots.
Yeah. And there's a park there. It's pretty notorious.
Like Algonquin?
That's it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's a huge territory. That's like bigger than a lot of European countries.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Do you go in there also?
Just on the periphery.
Okay.
Mostly it's canoe access.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Except there's no shortage of tracks that I'm confident no Homo sapien has ever walked upon.
Yeah.
And this is just in central Ontario, which is, in terms of European occupation, similar length of time as to, the 13 colonies and stuff like that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that do you have a canoe that you can get up in there?
I got an inflatable paddle board, but no.
Oh man. Jeez. Yeah, the thing that I most remember about being up in Quebec and Ontario is the black flies.
Well, that season's fast approaching, and
Yes.
it seems we can thank your government for all the tick-borne illnesses that we now have to be aware of. I think the one I most fear is the one that apparently makes you allergic to beef.
Yes. Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah,
You
well, I
really
don't
don't.
want any.
No. Nope. So, all right. Yeah. Tell us about what you and your organization do, things that you've done and find and
Well,
adventures.
currently at this point in time, I happen to be the only person of health in the organization, so I'm the one that's carrying the brunt of the field investigations, which are more or less limited to servicing the equipment at 3 properties, 2 here in Ontario and 1 down in Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
and just you know. I'm retired and I have other interests too, like firearms and on my motorcycle. Soon it'll be good enough for that pursuit as well, right? But
Cool.
yeah, no, it's when there's more than just the one. Like I'll go into the bush alone, which isn't wise whether you think there's something out there or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it would be exploring different conservation areas, and there's no shortage of river runs and things like that through
Mhm.
central and southern Ontario, where I think these animals, when they're migrating, they're not necessarily walking in the river, but they'd probably be paralleling it, as I
Yeah.
guess, terrain contingent, as much as a kilometer off of a particular waterway.
Mm-hmm.
There's no shortage of food. It's sort of like, that Pennsylvania property that you're familiar with. It's like, it's a pathway, but there seems to be, if you were on Google Earth, better paths for that particular animal,
Yeah.
but they're encumbered by human activity, and I think they rely upon a certain amount of confidence and predictability in terms of what they're going to find as they approach,
Mm-hmm.
human, human space, if you will.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, it's, we are predictable in a way for them, as entertainment. Yeah. They count on us for that,
Yes, they do.
as well as being an encumbrance. But
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's getting out into either areas where that we've had prior activity and or
Mhm.
see suggestive signs of past presence,
Yeah.
right, in the form of stick structures, stick sign, that type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then going back to those areas in and around the same time period where we had experiences. Like there's a conservation area here just west of me that in September is a prime time to go there, because in the past we've had 2 prior members claim to have seen the animal,
Okay.
right? So okay, we go back to that space, and there's always changes to the environment that are not attributed to snow load or
Mm-hmm.
windfall. Like they're something manipulated them, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to TP like structures, lean-tos, and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
when I first got into this back in 18, I was like, oh, right. But
Mm.
you start looking at the proximity of these structures versus greater humanity, if you will. And if you're
Right.
an indigenous person, and there's no shortage of, Native Indians in southern central Ontario as well,
Right.
right? And so this type of bushcraft is, no, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's more probably human made. But
Yeah.
then when you run out into, 15 kilometers away from the nearest township, and then you start finding a teepee, keeping in mind that wood structurally can hold itself for up to 20 years, depending on the species of wood and the age of the wood when it was first used to construct. It's just like, oh, well, maybe not so much, as high a percentage of human manufacture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Once you get far enough away from where kids, just 9 and 10-year-old kids can go and exploring their nearby woods and building little structures.
And twice we've run across structures, and we ask a property owner, any idea about when this show? Oh yeah, my boys made that, and they're now further down the trail making another one, right?
Yep. Yep.
But generally you can see signs of, I think, humans having manipulated the structure as opposed to fully freestand, like say something non-human having made it.
Right.
Okay,
it looks like we have a question here from Melvin. He asked, do you research alone or do you have sidekicks?
I would prefer sidekicks, but right now I'm a team of one, so I'm researching alone, unless when I'm at a property and one of the adult children of the property owners tag along, as they had done this past Sunday when I found that carcass that I shared with you and a select few others, right?
Yep. Yeah, we'll get to that in just a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, generally, Melvin, it's out there alone. We've done a few recruitment drives and things like that to no avail. It's not like, well, I suppose in this economy in both of our countries, $50 seems like a lot of money, but it hasn't gone up since 2018. And it's more like, it's a token of your interest in participating, as opposed to, we quote need the money. Like the next time SOB makes $1 will be a first, right?
Believe me, I know it's.
And I think most people into this pursuit, that's very much the case.
Yeah, it's a losing proposition, and you can go broke very easily doing this, between the travel and equipment. Equipment alone, geez, forget it. And then the gas, spending money on gas and so on. But
yeah, and the suit, the higher end trail cameras, it comes down to bang for dollar, right? And fine, you have $1,000 piece of gear out there, but it's just one.
Oh my goodness.
Whereas maybe like I got a bunch of cameras from Cabela's when they had their 2-packs on sale and stuff like that. They're a serviceable, fairly reliable camera. But they all have their drawbacks, and they all have a microscopic lens, right? So 20 feet out, something that's 6 feet tall looks pretty small. Right? You know what I mean? Like the technology is imperfect, and then you can have the whole conversation about placement of gear and things like that. Do they smell it? Do they see it? Do you know what it's just going to be dumb luck, and it's not that these animals have not been captured on trail camera and other and video camera. A distinguishment between structures made by Bigfoot and Dogman. I myself personally have no familiarity whatsoever of Dogman. However, the one of the property owners here, it's Central Ontario, goes, if it's Dogman, I'm selling. So, he's aware enough, but I have had no direct experience with Dogman, and I'm not sure. Are they known to themselves make structures?
That I don't know. I try to stay away from dogmen because they're about the last thing that I want to encounter.
Right.
But,
You know, but yeah, no, when it comes to, you know, Bigfoot structures, assuming that, you know, many of these structures are produced by them,
yeah.
they seem to mimic our constructions up in the what I call the Berry-Wasaga corridor, which is one of 4 access points for the animals if they're migrating out of the north into southern Ontario, excluding, you know, crossing from the south, you know, through Michigan and New York State.
Mm-hmm.
There was a fairly high end or, you know, wealthy neighborhood, and they had all these interesting you know, play structures for their kids
Mm-hmm.
in these backyards. And David and Kevin are, you know, the other co-founders of Seeking Ontario's Bigfoot. They started finding stick structures in the bush,
Oh,
mimicking those play structures.
really interesting.
Yeah. You know, it's just like, well, you know, and I think the animal has been resident in North America as long as Homo sapiens have been.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We have another question from Patty. Did any of the fires last year come close to you or your research site?
No, but the ice storm really hammered the site I was at this past weekend.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my.
And that's just going to change a lot of the movements of all the animals on that particular property and in that area, you know, writ large. They were, I think some areas were out of power for 8 days, and the initial ice storm took out the cell towers for 2 days.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my.
And then there was the looting that shortly there followed.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's, you don't have any contact to the outside world, but
Yeah.
you all knew a ice storm was coming, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden you don't have any connection to the outside world. Well, I guess a lot of people panic. You know,
And they
empty
think it's
grocery
the end of the
stores, a
world.
food bank got broken into, a church kitchen got broken into. It was just like, really?
That's insane. I mean, really, come on.
Yeah.
It was
So
2
I don't
days.
consider myself a prepper, if you will, but I am prepared. You know, I've got my supply of seeds and ammunition.
Yes, well, that's the important thing right there.
You know, but well, I think that's the important thing anywhere, it seems, in the last decade or so.
Yeah,
But
really, yeah.
you know, I digress. Yeah. And the other thing too, with a lot of these structures found, whether in the style of a lean-to or as a teepee, they're over-engineered. Like there's just far too much material
Yeah.
used to make the form of it.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, that takes away from it being human.
Yeah.
In the sense that, you know, the traditional TP was, you know, 8 or so poles, right, and then skins covering it,
Right.
right, and then it really doesn't matter how many sticks you put up.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't protect you from, you know, moisture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the weather still
But
comes in.
I have seen some that have got fairly advanced bows, you know, cladded on top like shingles, but those were quite clearly native made.
Yeah.
Just simply because of a nice square doorway. Right? And then a fire ring, you know. And I'm only aware of one story in history of Bigfoot and fire out west.
That's right. Yes.
You know.
No, I noticed that. Well, of course, you know, the sticks or the tree structures that are human made. On the most part, you can tell, they've been cut, the trees or the tree limbs. Not always, but you'll find a lot of it with saw cuts.
But in the areas that we frequently go in for our field research, they're conservation areas. So like when a tree falls, right, and things like that, it's human beings clearing the trail. And I don't think any animal is particularly wasteful. So if they see something that a human had cut, they're gonna pick up the easy find, right?
That's right. Opportunistic
Yeah.
creatures, no matter what. But no. And one other thing that I've noticed, though, with the Bigfoot structures versus human-made structures, is that the Bigfoot structures seem to be a little bit more primitive. The tree, the limbs and the sticks aren't quite so neatly like the teepees. They're more of a just brush and leaves and branches just thrown up together, and there's a hole for something to crawl into. Otherwise, something otherwise I take as being more human.
Yeah, like when you run into lean-tos or blind type things and there's cross bracing, you're going, yeah, probably not the subject of our pursuit, right? And then the other times is you can actually see where something's been tied off. And I know all about tree weaves and some of those anomalies out there that the animal may have the capability of tying intricate knots, as you hear of their interaction with livestock, horses in particular, and their manes, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily disclude it, but usually the signs of fire kind of take it out of the,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Now, when was it? A couple days ago, you found an animal, a possible kill.
Yeah, and on Sunday I was out at the property in central Ontario servicing the equipment and relocating equipment. And one of the cameras was pointing in the opposite direction where that particular carcass was found. But I'd gone that way again because the last time I'd serviced that camera, I went about 5 yards past the camera towards the swamp, and there was 2 distinct knocks.
Yeah.
And one of the property owner's son was, and it sounded like it was coming from the house. And one of the property owner's son goes, yeah, I heard that too. And it sounded like it was coming from the swamp. So triangulating in, okay, I think it's they're on that small island in the swamp. And no one's been there in a decade. And they've lost 2 snowmobiles into that thing. So, it's, go with a buddy.
Yeah.
At least mark where you went down and didn't come back up, right?
Oh.
So that's why I tripped back down there this past Sunday, and then I see this corpse, right? And taking a closer look, and I was like, did it get skinned? And no, taking a closer look, its head was snapped at the neck, and it was turned inside out. There was no claw marks, there's no teeth marks. All the good bits were taken out. The fur, is, that's the tail that you can see there. But yeah, that thing's inside out. And I know that property owners, that's what they do with rabbits, but rabbits look big and fluffy, but the amount of meat on a big rabbit is nowhere near what you're seeing here. And this would have been, a medium-sized raccoon.
Yeah, that's Wow. And it was probably just too far gone to really pick it up and study any other marks or anything else that may have been on it.
Yeah, but yeah, they're just, just looking at it, no camera can do justice to what the human eye can see.
Right.
Yeah, there was no signs outside of the broken neck, and then it's turned inside out.
Yeah. Now, you said that the neighbor, they'll take rabbits and turn rabbits.
Yeah, like the property owners, that that's how they'd get a rabbit.
Yeah.
Right, but a rabbit is maybe a good sized rabbit is probably half the size of this particular raccoon once you get past the fur, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm trying to think what would be the purpose. We're what about the heart and lungs? The anything edible, the liver.
Yeah, it's all gone.
Yeah.
It was all taken, and it was lying right in the middle of a game trail. And I something must have been predating on the skull.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's field mice. They've got fields on that particular property, but there was no signs of that type of predation either.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought it was like Inside Out. I've seen stags or buck deer stuffed into a tree, and something is torn open the belly and taken the good stuff. I saw an example of that down in Short Hills Provincial Park out in St. Catharines in southern Ontario once.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that, and that's why I reached out to yourself and others, Mary. Is like, has this been seen before?
Yeah, Inside Out. No, they like I've said before, I've seen a coyote twisted like an old wrung out dish rag, but
Right.
Inside Out, no, that I have never seen. And that, I keep trying to, going through in my mind, why? Other
Well,
than easy access to the innards, to the edible innards. I don't know.
yeah, but then to turn something inside out or thumbs.
Yeah, you need
Because
opposable
there's
thumbs.
no claw marks, there's no teeth marks, you know, which maybe would be a point of purchase, and then
Mhm.
you're using your paws to manipulate the body in that fashion. But
Yeah,
I'm not aware of any foxes, coyotes, wolves, bears. Right? They don't do that. They just
yeah,
lions, the big cats. They just eat right on through.
right, right. They
You know.
wouldn't manipulate one like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just crazy. How about anyone else here? Has anyone else experienced or seen anything like this in your areas? And Melvin says first time he's ever seen nasty. I agree. And sorry guys, I should have given a warning before I popped these photos up, but um,
Well,
real
I think there's more vivid roadkill if you're on the lookout for that than
yes,
this thing's probably, I hazard a guess, a week, max 2 weeks, right?
yeah,
It's not outside of whatever, strip the flesh off the skull. It's in decent shape.
yeah, and I'm trying to look at it and think, okay, nothing else has touched it. Although, why would they? You know,
Well, and
possibly,
you do hear that, in the field where other animals won't touch, the supposed or suggested Bigfoot kill, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Just because of the smell and what it belongs to, that it may return to it, but I'll. Okay, let's see.
But in May, I'm going to actually camp not that far away from there by myself. I'll bring the street howitzer with me. It is Canada, so I can't have anything smaller than that for self-preservation, if you will. Not that I want to pop one, but at the same time, I don't want my head removed from my shoulders either by the big, hairy, scary guy, as I fondly describe him.
Okay, Ken Squatch says he's seen an opossum twisted inside out on a dirt road, but it may have been run over by a car. I don't know, twisted in to this degree. I don't know. Yeah, it's strange. That's truly a puzzle. But again, opposable thumbs. What else could have done it? Something pretty strong.
Yeah. Well, and that neck was snapped clean. It wasn't cut.
Yeah. Okay. Something very strong, beyond pretty strong, just very strong, and holy moly. Can Squatch, yes, please, you can send me a picture. I appreciate it. Yeah, if you can
No,
send
it's not
that.
evidence of anything. It's just suggestive of something odd with,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the two photos, guys.
Yeah.
But I think those are graphic enough that you get the idea. Wow. Yeah, that's just plain amazing.
But it's all part of it's all suggestive, right? Like whether most I don't know how many blob squatches I've deleted because you don't have to zoom in too much for something to become just horribly pixelated, and and there's always the danger of pareidolia.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, and that's usually the way that I operate with photos. If I cannot see it clearly, if I can't make out, that
if I have to put out an image with red circles around it leading the witness, it's not. And this is my personal opinion. It's just not worth putting out there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Although the one photo that I took in Oklahoma, that I did a follow up on, a comparison, and I think those photos I tend to keep, but I always call it possible. I don't, I'll never say definite, Bigfoot or whatever. Yeah. It's always just a possible. But I followed up on that to double check that it was. Okay, let me see this photo. Okay. Hold on a second. If I can.
And then, unfortunately, with artificial intelligence, and before that, computer graphic images and things like that, it's almost to the point where a clear image is of interest to people that either know of the animal's existence, believe in the animal's existence. It will not and should not necessarily change any principal skeptics' opinion as to the existence or not of this particular animal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we have a question here from Robert. Um, hold on a second. How many reports have you had from Southwest Ontario, specifically shorelines of Northwest Lake Erie, Detroit River, Lake St. Clair River, Southeast Lake Huron, and Georgian Bay?
When it comes to the Windsor-Detroit corridor, far southern Ontario, I'm only aware of one roadside sighting of the animal crossing, and that was like from 15 years ago. When it comes to the Georgian Bay and things like that, Kevin just was talking to a person with multiple experiences themselves up in the Georgian Bay area. And, about 3 months ago, an individual reported seeing an animal in a conservation area up in and around Georgian Bay, around Victoria Harbor, right? So it's, they come in, but it's like anything and everything else. We've got an SOB hotline, if you will, for for calls, and on our website, people do, I'd say maybe 6 times a year we get a report through the website, and I think the next time we get a report through the hotline will be a first. But it's just a free phone number that one of the founders can have through their phone plan, right? So it's like, okay, well, why not, right?
Exactly. Use it, utilize it for something like that. Great. Well, hopefully somebody calls it and takes advantage.
Well, people have called it, but it's more the pranks, right? Like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or it's some Asian voice saying, I owe money to the CRA, which is our IRS. For you Americans, it's your IRS. It's our Canada Revenue Service, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That and your warranty is up, is due on your vehicle. We get all of
yeah,
those.
things break down a month afterwards. Yes.
Yeah, that's another scam caller that we get.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm every time I'm down to Pennsylvania and I'm watching your television. I haven't had cable in Canada for, I don't know, about 15 years now. So maybe our commercials are just as bad as yours. I'm like,
Yeah, they are.
Extra insurance for car breakdown. I'm like, no.
Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
But whatever. It's it is about making money.
That's for sure, except they're in Nigeria and
Well, didn't that Nigerian prince turn out to be some white guy in New Jersey or something like that? I heard that at least one of the Nigerian princes got busted.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
One of the many.
Yeah. Well, it's a good scam, right? It's been going for what, 20, 25 years?
At least 25 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
works.
by email. Oh man. But well, let's talk about the Pennsylvania research area. Now in 2018, let me go back in time here. Whenever I first met JP, I was having a mini camp out conference for the members of Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, and we had a few speakers, and JP was one of the speakers. He and his daughter graciously volunteered, or I volunteered them, one or the other.
We were requested, and as guests, we accepted the request. Yeah.
And in the meantime, while we were there, a local lady, came over, and I think she spoke with you first, JP. I'm not sure, and showed you some photos, and then she showed them to me also. And they looked interesting enough, along
Yeah.
with the information that she was giving, that we figured uh, this needs a follow-up.
Right.
So the following November, a bunch of us came. There was, yourself and at least one other member of your team, or was it two?
David, one of the co-founders. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he came, and JP, myself, and the other lady who got her uh, ears blown out by the Bigfoot. She unfortunately backed out, but we had a great time. We did a comparison alongside a tree. The property owner had seen the Bigfoot standing next to a pine tree. And I still have the photo of you standing by that tree in the spot where the Bigfoot was, and holding a stick up in the air.
Yeah.
And the witness, of course, she said its head was that height. So, we measured, your height plus the point where that stick, how tall the stick was.
Right.
And it was right around 8 foot.
That's right.
And but that particular Bigfoot seems to be a frequent flyer on that property.
Yeah, but there's more than one based on the size of the tracks that are regularly found, and there's enough activity on that property over time to warrant, going down literally once a month, like a 6-hour drive for me, right? So,
Yeah,
and they're great hosts,
fantastic.
Yeah.
I love them. Wonderful couple.
But what I find interesting is she did eventually find all of those SD cards from her, her years and years of trail cameras, and so I did get a chance to review and find them. And the one that seemed most intriguing at that time in 2018, 100%, it's a black bear. And how do I know that? Because I've had the similar effect on a camera on that property, but located elsewhere. And I've had that effect in, out in the Peterborough property. I was just like, okay, that's for sure. But at the time getting into this, I was like, oh, you're expanding the image.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Right.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, no, 100%. That was a black bear. And there's no shortage of black bears that traverse that property as well.
Absolutely. There are a lot of black bears.
Damn big.
Yeah. They grow them big up there.
Yeah.
But okay, Stephen has a question. Okay, unfortunately, I don't know where it's at. Stephen, can you put your question in capitals, all caps, please?
Is how often do you go out on your investigation? So I'm out at least 3 times a month, and 2 of those are overnighters. And I don't mean necessarily overnighters in the bush, but overnighters with a host family. Like myself, like I'll be going down. My wife's a flight attendant, so she's gone for Easter holidays. So I'm going down to Pennsylvania, and
all right.
The adult kid can be lord of the house here.
All right.
With the dog.
With the dog.
I'm not bringing Sasquatch food out into the bush with me. I don't think the wife would ever forgive me if something happened to Pepper.
Here's another question that I missed.
Pennsylvania this weekend.
Does
Ontario? No. British Columbia does.
Yeah.
And I believe Washington State. Although, anyone that does harvest an animal in that fashion, I think the state would be hard pressed to make the charges stick, given that well, you didn't acknowledge its existence.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Although who knows, they may say, well, it's a rare breed that you're killing.
I think if you ever ran across the cadaver of one, your best bet is to take your samples and never disclose where you found it.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And if you pop one, you're lucky to get out of the bush alive, because I don't think these animals travel alone.
No, they don't. There's always at least one other around, and no, I don't suggest. Okay. How often do you go out on your investigations?
So I go out, 3 times, a month, in to service equipment. And if there's somebody new, that rarely shows up, then it's, go and explore either an area that we've touched in the past that's had activity, or to go and explore a new area. Like we're considering having some expedition thing in September, but
Nice.
it's all on me to make it happen. And if I go down, then I don't really want to disappoint. And it's not like finding Bigfoot. It's more I wish to treat it more as an educational thing. These are the types of things that we look for. There's some of the equipment. Here's, the pros and cons, or strengths and limitations of the equipment. And, and have these people do hands-on. And if it's sort of like what I had done back in 2018, have somebody run around in a ghillie suit and people are looking with thermal and IR. I can go forth and do that, because at least in Canada, the likelihood somebody's armed in the bush is pretty minimal. Whereas when we did that at Cook's Forest, I'm like, and by the way, make sure if you see it's a guy in a costume, it's so-and-so's fiance, right?
That's right. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
And there was 200 people that showed up for that.
I know, that was a pretty good crowd.
Yeah.
Really good.
Had I been more capitalistic, it was just like, $5 entrance fee.
I know, heck. But
but yeah, no, it was fun to do.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Nighttime investigations are crazy. Have you seen their glowing eyes, heard whoops and tree breaks?
As well as rocks and sticks flying into the encampment, yes. And not infrequently. Like if they're in the area, they're curious about you, and if they don't want you there, they're going to make it known that you should not be there. Right? Absolutely,
yeah.
One of the tactics that we use when we do what I describe as a night vigil is we stretch around ourselves up to 6 feet tall as landscape fabric, just staple gun it to the trees in order to create curiosity, to draw them in closer. Right.
Yeah. I remember seeing photos of that, and how successful have you been with doing that? Have you had anything peeking over that you know of?
No, they don't get that close, but things will get lobbed in.
Okay.
A few times things have been lobbed in with us on the the fire side of the blind. But what we do find is when we put out dummy camps, and it's never set so close that the camera goes off, but the Zoom recorders out there pick up all sorts of interesting things, including, items being thrown at the tent walls, which is commonly reported by, campers, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Yes, Stephen says, always keep an open mind. JP, you're doing great.
Well, it's principled skepticism is what I like. I start with and work my way to the impossible or improbable. Like, it's like arches that you can find in the bush. A lot of that is just a species of tree when they're in drought. They'll go over. Survivalists will also bend over young saplings and then bury the heads of the sapling into the dirt and otherwise secure it. But those types of structures, which you sometimes find in conservation areas, are very obvious that it was a survivalist that did it, because the last thing you really want to be doing is having 4 or 6 feet of headroom. Whereas, like, in 20 years in the military, a hoochie, which is just, a sheet 18 inches, 16 inches above the ground, it's about, as low to keep as much heat within the structure itself, right? So when you do see arches that are like 8 feet tall, right, and the ends are definitely jammed into the dirt and otherwise secured, that doesn't seem to me like a survivalist did that. And it's definitely more than nature. And then when I say jammed into the dirt and stuff piled on top, it's not because the dead tree next to it it's what's holding it in place, right?
Right. Yep, absolutely. Now, there's one experience I recall at the property in the Allegheny National Forest that is very memorable with you and the Bigfoot.
Was that me servicing equipment and I'd look one way and it was moving the other way? No.
You were running back and forth in the woods. You go to the left, he'd run to the right, and
should have called my cell phone.
That was memorable and quite hilarious also.
Yeah.
Dave and I, we'd be hollering out, "He's over to your right, he's over there," and you'd run over there and he'd run to the left.
Yeah.
And it was just back and forth.
And it doesn't take many folds in the ground to hide yourself.
Yeah.
And even an animal likely as thick as perhaps I am broad in terms of like the larger of the species, doesn't take much ground to hide.
No, and there's enough woods back there and folds in the ground.
Yeah. And to break up, your profile, standing or lying down, all you need is 3 sticks.
Yeah.
That's it. Human eye then just wanders right on over it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's amazing just how little it does take, just keeping perfectly still and just breaking up the outline. That's all it takes.
I in terms of stealth in the woods and things like that, I remember a time in Army cadets, there was 30 of us, and we're all dressed in their surplus Army gear, and this Vietnam veteran, Canadian that had served with the U.S. Army, comes up and he's dressed like the Glad Man, just all white, right? Like Mr. Muscle, all white. He killed all 30 of us. And he's dressed in white. You think you could find that in a green bush, right? Yeah, he killed all 30 of us. Obviously not literally, but
yes.
Yeah.
Would you have paint guns or something?
Pardon me?
Did you have those paintball guns or something?
It was he'd get up and he'd tap you in the back of the head or trip you.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah. It was close quarters.
Close to. Holy cannoli.
Yeah, so you got a bunch of 12 to 14-year-olds thinking they're the cat's meow of, I'm gung ho, I'm a soldier, right? I just got wiped out. So it's movement gives you away, generally. So if you can stay still, and I think if you make yourself a hole in the bush long enough, like
Yeah.
just like, hunting by stalking, in 20 minutes to 40 minutes, nature accepts your presence and, returns, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you're just playing with the wind,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. The crickets and the tree frogs and everything else starts up again. The birds,
Yeah.
and so the signs of the predators are gone, and
Right.
it's whenever you make your move.
Yeah. Well, and, the few times I've been to the woods, and I think more than a few times, over a dozen times, it just gets deathly quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And I just put it back against the tree and
Yeah.
whatever. Most of the time it happens to me in Canada, or well, even in your country, I'm largely unarmed too,
Yeah.
right? So I'm just like,
Yeah.
don't fail me now, hiking pole. You know?
Well, you got those long legs too. You can run.
Yeah, well, actually, you can't outrun human beings. They can't outrun most animals.
No, no, that's true.
You know.
And I've seen a Bigfoot running, so I know
Yeah,
how
and
fast they move.
yeah, you hear reports of them paralleling trucks and cars
Yep.
on the highways in British Columbia. Is largely where I hear these reports.
So, have you found anything unusual other than the inside out raccoon?
Nothing. Nothing. No field researcher hasn't themselves encountered in their areas where they suspect there's activity. Like, they're closer than we think. And, just a quick jaunt through Google Earth, your nation is the same as ours. There's, green belts, and there's fingers of greenery that interconnect these belts going out from suburbia, and usually those fingers are waterways,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And it's waterways followed by railway, followed by hydro lines. Like in terms of clear passages that these animals may become accustomed to utilizing for, their movements.
Yeah.
That would be probably the order that they encountered them, hydro lines being the last. Probably hydro lines would be the best of the three, including a river, because usually a hydro line is going to cross a body of water or be running parallel at some point in time to a body of, a stream or something. But, terrain wise, it's a lot easier on your feet than railway rocks, right?
Yep.
And or endless miles of the balancing beam. In my youth, I was pretty good, but I wouldn't say today.
Yeah. Who can anymore? Yeah, I think Kumbo had a question. Yeah, Kumbo's on here now, and he had a question about the raccoon. All internal organs were gone, correct?
Yes.
And the head was.
It's I don't know if you're able to zoom in on it, but it's cleanly broken. I'm trying to bring up the image myself here on my phone. And it's pointing back towards the body. So like where you see this, I'm pointing at my screen. That doesn't help anybody. But where you see the skull closest to the brown, that's actually the front of the skull.
My.
And that neck, so furthest away is the neck, and that's just a nice clean break.
Yeah. And this was found in the middle of a trail.
Yeah.
A footpath.
Yeah.
Or
not a footpath, like a game trail.
Game trail.
It's not
Okay.
something that the property owners use on a regular basis. The camera I had was, pointing in the opposite direction down one of the little vehicle path tracks that they have, and that camera was there 2 years, and outside of people and the odd deer, caught nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I have my theories about how they detect the presence of these things, because they don't seem to be shy of audio, and that doesn't make a lot of sense to me per se, outside of maybe there's something that these cameras emit that an audio doesn't, and
Right.
it's necessarily the electromagnetic field of the batteries, because a dog apparently can see the electromagnetic spectrum. So I was figuring, well, maybe these animals have that capability. And so, you put a trail camera up, it's got 6 to 8 batteries. That's just a big, huge electromagnetic spotlight, unless you can get it up 12, 14 feet up a tree, in which case it's out of their likely line of sight as they move through terrain.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Or buried into a stump, right?
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, Stephen says he's found deer bones snapped and the bone marrow sucked out. Any bone marrow in the bones?
I did not look. But yeah, I think bone marrow is probably the most nutritious part of any animal.
Yeah.
But it would seem strange if it was the subject of the pursuit that did this. Why didn't they just take it? Do you know? Because it doesn't appear to have been consumed on site.
Yeah,
right? It's not, and it's not of a size or a weight that even a human child couldn't manage. Right.
Yeah,
So it seems strange that it's in this one condition and 2 where it is located.
Yeah. If your camera had only been pointing in the opposite direction, but then
Yeah, well, if that was the case, I'd be a trillionaire. If all the ifs and buts of my life came true, and for that of anybody, in the audience, right?
Yep. Oh, okay. Kumba, we'll keep you and Sandy in our prayers. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Definitely, both of you are in our prayers. Oh. Well, we'll put her on our prayer list, most definitely. And let's see. Yeah, JP, what are your future plans for not only the Pennsylvania research area, but up in Canada?
Well, I'd like to be able to spend more time overnight, like 2 or 3 days or nights overnight in a location of suspected activity, like at the Pennsylvania property. Once the homeowner was gracious and good enough to provide me a tool of personal defense when I slept alone in the back 40.
I remember that. Yes.
I ringed myself with cameras, so if I was being abducted, maybe there'd be evidence of what took me, right?
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
But
now describe what you did for everyone.
I just grabbed a sleeping bag and a bivy bag and a cot, and I just wandered off, I don't know, 30, 40 yards into the bush away from where the fire pit was, and put a couple of cameras out pointed towards me, so any and situated such that on the likely avenues of approach towards me, they wouldn't notice it until they tripped, or so I was thinking and hoping that the camera, but yeah, I was undisturbed all night long. It was all good. I once slept through an artillery barrage, so it takes a lot to wake me up once I'm down.
So no rocks thrown at you during the night or anything like that?
No sign. Like, I cleaned around,
Now
the
that's
area.
unusual because at that location, they're always throwing little rocks and stones at us, pieces of rock.
Well, one of the homeowners, she gets hit on a regular basis. I don't know if it's love or.
Yeah, I know. And I keep telling her, holler at them, because, they should know better not to hit. And if they are hitting her, then it's deliberately. And I know it's not hard, but even so, just the fact that they are hitting her with those, little, pieces of gravel, and she needs to, chew them out, because that's what I used to do with the one around my place. I used to holler at them and chew them out, go full out bear, on them,
Right.
watch mama.
Yeah, well, in the Peterborough area, one of the property owner's sons, he's got a cabin, in the midst of the property that he lives in, and he's gone out chasing it a few times in his birthday suit with a 12 gauge because the damn animal was waking him up and he needs to sleep, right?
Yes.
You might not want to do that. And then he saw it. And so he's now bought a 45-70 as opposed to just a little 12 gauge. But he doesn't go play tag with it anymore.
At least in his birthday suit.
But it regularly approaches where he lives.
Yeah.
And then recently threw a rock that cracked the window, and he was pretty pissed about that. So
Yeah. Wow. Well, he's better armed than I was, because I used to chase after the one at my place with a golf club.
Oh.
Not in my birthday suit, though.
I was having visions of Tiger Woods and his ex-wife.
Well, they piss you off enough. You go after them.
Yeah. But I look forward to this upcoming weekend down in Pennsylvania, that property, and in May I'm going to try to find 3 nights where I can set up a false camp and put that under observation, and then spend 3 nights close to where I think they are, and pretty damn close to where that inside out raccoon was found.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And see what comes about, because I got one of those hunting blinds that's sort of like a one-way or a two-way mirror. So you're on the inside, and it's very difficult for something on the outside to see into it. Right. So I think that, and I'll string up some felt on the inside, because movement, I think, would give it away, give yourself away within that otherwise blind, and stay up as long as I can and see what comes or not. Right.
Nice. Very nice.
So that's what I hope to do. Likely I'll end up doing it alone. But company would always be nice, but
well, you come back down to
it's wet
Pennsylvania.
enough I can have a fire for psychological comfort.
Yes. At least in the Pennsylvania research area, you have the homeowners there, the property owners, and unfortunately I don't have transportation anymore, so
okay.
But if I can come up, I'll come up. If I can grab my husband's truck and stay for the weekend, you bet I'll come up.
Okay, excellent.
Grab any chance I get to get up there. I love it up there. It's so fun.
Well, it's like Todd describes it. It's like going to Grandma and Grandpa's house. The problem is the one of the property owners is, I don't know, a few months older than I am, but because of her illnesses,
Yeah,
very, very much aged.
I
Which is
know.
unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. They are in my prayers. Because of that, and love them both. And they're younger than me, and I think, unfortunately, I think of them as being older, but because of their health, and you
What I
just want.
find odd about both properties, the Pennsylvania one and the one out by Peterborough, is they all have pets, and the pets are not molested.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because the Pennsylvania property, she has cats. She's got a dog that runs around occasionally outside, but there's that cat that you see running around.
I'd like to put a GoPro on that cat.
Oh my goodness! What he has seen. I know there's a couple photos that we have of him possibly looking at it. I'm not sure, because the expression on this cat's face, he's looking up in the air as if he's expecting to get petted.
Right. Yeah. Yep. There's just enough oddities to keep going back.
Absolutely, yeah. And this property, it's the same property. Everyone, if you're not familiar, the windows on the house and windows on the garage and the camper, as well as my pickup truck and any other vehicle. Yeah, there's handprints galore, and nose print. And Todd has done a fantastic job of collecting. I guess he calls it the sebum from.
I think that's
from the fingers. It's a sticky substance that's left on the windows, and he collects that, and and he has copies of the whorls from the fingerprints. And they're very very visible.
I've helped him recover a few. I equate it like if you're scared or nervous, your palms sweat, and I don't think it's the alpha in the neighborhood. It's likely the juvie. It's not likely the mother that's approaching, and it's scared, it's nervous, and that's what's leaving the residue behind. Because if that was the case, you'd be finding that stuff everywhere. Bigfoot pulled that tree over. Okay, well, where's all the sebum? The clear handprint, on the bark, because that stuff does not go away easily.
No, that and on the rocks and everything else.
Right. So like the pebbles that the property owner gets hit with, they're dry.
Yeah.
Right. So, my hypothesis is it's a sweat, it's a nervous gland.
Okay. Right? Now that's very possible. Very, very possible, but he's bold. He's just plain too bold, coming up, on a regular basis, coming up right.
They leave that back patio door open, or just with the screen. I'm like, oh.
Yes.
And they've seen the damn thing, right? I was just like, okay.
Yeah. Right there at that back patio door and bedroom window.
And it's been on that patio. It's left prints on that door.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, that frightens me for them.
But I think the previous property owners were successfully scared off in a quick amount of time.
Yeah.
Because they didn't own that property that long, and what they sold it for wasn't market.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the previous property owners left things in the house also. So it was a quick getaway, very quick
Yeah. Well, and
And
then that new cabin that was built across the road, for some reason, they don't come back no more.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. This area, it's in the Allegheny National Forest, and that's all the information that I'm going to give out on it. And the Allegheny National Forest, it's a huge area, and there's a lot of areas, and we've gone to a few different areas in there where there's activity. And I know the last camp out that we had in a different section of the forest, the camp out had just about the same type of activity. There, juveniles coming up to the trailers, rocking the trailers, and throwing rocks and pebbles and everything, and generally being ornery little buggers. But you'll have to come with us next time we're there. Oh no, you were there. You did a little recon there one time, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like like these large gatherings that you have, and I think I was at one of yours down at is it Salt Forks,
Salt Fork, yeah.
right? And I'd like to go again, but I'd like just to off from where the main encampment is
Yes.
throw up a tree stand 30 feet tall and be up there
Yeah.
and just surveil, because there just seems far too much activity originating from one end of that campground.
Okay.
And there's clear, and people came back with tracks and casts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
From where they, where people suspected that's where they had heard the calls come from.
Mm-hmm.
If you went far enough out, right? And other people were reporting that, stuff thrown at their tents, right? So it's just like, well, if you can get up high and it's approaching, it's not likely scanning the sky if it's coming in, to do a recon of human space.
Right.
It's going to be more worried about what's going on in front of it and then necessarily above it, right? Like how many people in the woods actually, when you know that there's wildcat, look up anyhow? And they're an ambush predator.
Yeah.
They exist.
Yeah, it's very possible, because they're on the most part juveniles, that you could fool them with something like that. Possible.
Well, we all make mistakes, and even if the animal knows where a particular recording device is, they might have some timers at some point in time, or as has happened 3 times for me, I've had trail cameras set on time lapse, and as the it's 2 a.m, 3 a.m, whatever, it's the sun is down, and it's taking an image just as a bolt of lightning illuminates the whole area. So this happened once out in the Peterborough area and twice in the Pennsylvania property. And even if it knows it's there and is skirting it, that's just dumb luck, and that's all it would take. Right?
Yeah.
And it's not like they're not observant, because it's not every tree stand that I find in hunting areas here in southern Ontario. But some of them, it's very clear about 40 feet out. There's birch, right? That's made X's, away from the, so I'm the bow hunter or the gun hunter in a tree stand. About 40 feet out, you find little X's or some other type of sign that can only be seen as you approach, which is more or less corresponds to the limits of human eyesight, when it's dark and moving into twilight. Yeah. Right. So it's not every tree stand that you find that, but many you do. You see that there's some marker, right, that if you were approaching the tree stand, that only you would see. It's not like a ranging marker from the standpoint of the person in the tree stand.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Wow. Yeah, they're sure something. Now, the cameras, some of the cameras that you've put up, or was it one of the property owners, where it was interfered with in some way, fashion, manipulated?
Pennsylvania property, when I had cameras crossing the covering the roadway, I've lost 4 chips, 1 camera, and at least 1 camera that got, found.
Uh-huh.
Why are the chips disappearing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And that's somebody stopped, somebody saw something, then somebody noticed the trail camera. I don't know.
Yeah,
And I threw my cameras into the tree, so it's not like,
yeah.
they're easy to get by, but I don't put locks or wads of gun tape around the latch to get to the SD card either.
Well,
right?
maybe next time do that. Yeah, I mean, really, removing the SIM card, that's oh,
Well, I missed the information, but I'm glad I'm not out $200 for a camera, right?
yeah, yeah.
I think the X symbolizes like a barrier or a boundary in the Peterborough property. I think the animals are resident in the swamp area, and the property owners about 2 years ago started clearing out the cedars in a certain part of their property, and then all of a sudden 2 of the trees they felled were put up into an X. And the property owner saw something looking at him from the edge of that swamp, and they cleaned out their stuff but didn't push any further into the forest. And then they go to another part of their property, and while they don't find the X, they find items from other parts of the property that have been moved to where they're now cleaning out cedar that wasn't there the day before that they were chopping, right? But yeah, I believe they're boundary markers. The stick sign that are leans usually where it's a tree break, and so some of them are fairly large. Like not even in my youth, I don't think I could ever snap a healthy tree like this. And if there's a twist where it's been broken, I kind of attribute that to likely the animal. And it seems that they're guideways, but they're also guideways away from danger. In one particular conservation area, it's all of a sudden, there's no rhyme or reason why all of a sudden you've got 4 of these things. And all it was pointing, guiding you away from this unseen cliff. Like you'd fall 30 feet into this stream or river that ran through this ravine. But if you're moving fast at night, you wouldn't see it until you stepped off into the so I was like, and I know in that particular conservation area, based upon the tracks I've seen, as well as what I think was a glimpse, but it's a glimpse, right? There's a lot of other large things that move fast that are black at twilight in the bush, right? Yeah, that seems likely. Humans wouldn't do that. We'd have some form of different warning, including signage, right?
Yeah.
And this wasn't exactly on the beaten human path either, right? Like I say, if you're doing field research, you got to get off the trail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not all the time, but
Does Wind Clan Ken have a thought as to the meaning of the X made by the subject of our pursuit? I don't know how interactive a podcast is. This is the first time I've ever done one. So
yeah, well, yeah. What Wind Clan Ken? What is your opinion? or else, let me see here.
In this field of pursuit, and Mary, you've heard me say this many times, there are no experts. Like there's many people in this field of pursuit that have expertise, but I think writ large, there's no expert per se of Bigfoot even. And I used to say, except for if you got one in a freezer somewhere, but you still wouldn't be expert because you don't know how the animal lived. Do you know what I mean? Like there'd still be a lot of blind spots, right?
Yeah, biology and anatomy, but then you wouldn't know behavior. And that, to me, that's more important, is behavior. And that's what I study. And just fascinates me, more than anything.
It's like the ultimate Powerball, 3 in a row Powerballs that you won in a row, right? So it's like the improbable of the improbable. So if you ever ran across a cadaver, take the head, and then that's all you'd need. Like, of course, we're going to grab the foot. No, just take the head, because eyes, nose, taste, brain,
and the head
possibly
is
both that. Yeah, I know. I've got a big backpack, but
40 pounds.
yeah.
Throw
So
it in your backpack, soldier.
But in terms of priority, if you ran across the cadaver of one of these animals, it would be the head, then a hand, then a foot. I think once you have that, then all the foot casts went, oh, okay. Do you know what I mean?
And in the meantime, his brother's running up behind you in a scene.
Well, no, a cadaver, not that. Yeah, no, I'm not talking about. You're squeezing a trigger. I'm just talking about. And there have been reports more out of Alaska and northern BC of younger Bigfoot type thing found in rivers.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Like the bodies have been found in a river, right?
Yeah.
And while I think they largely travel in family groupings, you do get the odd report, like out towards the Pinery Provincial Park, where there was just a single, what I'll call it, the single animal making these howls, presumably in the spring, early summer, looking for a mate or friends. But it's pretty desolate down there in terms of thick cover for them to be, resident all year round.
Yeah.
Right. And that, again, that's just a supposition. It doesn't take much land to hide 6 people or to even sustain a family of 6, to be honest.
Yeah, that's for sure. And to hide, well, your example of the guy in all white.
Yeah. But it's also the risk of humans encroaching in on the space, right?
Yeah.
Like what are the paths of evasion, right? Like, they're not the friendly force giant, that's for damn sure.
No.
And, I think that from time to time, they're curious as to what we do, and likely the youth more so. And, but they can and do travel alone, and accidents do happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, all the floods, like you were saying, forest fires. I'm thinking of the flooding, the massive flooding down in North Carolina, where there's still hundreds of people missing, buried under 30 plus feet of mud. God knows what happened to them. But let's see, Winclan Ken. I've heard different things. Some say they mean welcome. That would be the X structures, unless a horizontal tree behind it means keep out. The Nephilim.
So an X and then a bar behind. So almost like an asterisk.
Okay. All right. That kind of makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Where it would change it, you change the outline. Okay.
Yeah.
Perhaps the X has a spiritual meaning, such as Christmas, X is for Christ.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah, the Xmas is more a human shortening of it, but
Well,
spiritual,
it's a symbol that has meaning within its species,
right,
right?
it could be a
And
spiritual
and
thing.
it's and as a member of my species of the culture and time I've grown up in, X means like it's wrong or wrong way down the highway type thing, right? Railway
Yeah,
tracks ahead, like
yeah,
danger, that type of thing.
right.
But again, that's
Or X
that's my
marks the spot.
cultural interpretation of that symbol, right?
Yeah, right.
And the other thing too is, trees do fall in the woods, and depending on the angle you catch it, it looks like an axe, but you have to literally get up on it to determine
Yes,
if it's purpose built as opposed to, I won't say pareidolia because it is actually there, but it was just a perspective thing, right?
right. If from wood rot or wind or something else,
Yeah,
weather
it's just two
cause,
random,
natural cause.
trees that have fallen in such
Yeah,
a configuration that from where you're standing, it appears to be an axe, right?
yeah,
Same as a lot of, that's an interesting looking lean-to thing from a certain angle. You get there, not just a pile of brush that has no, rhyme or reason to it, right?
yeah,
Outside of what your brain clicked on from that particular angle, right?
yeah. That's interesting. The asterisk, the X with the horizontal behind it, or perhaps even interwoven.
Yeah.
Um,
Like the asterisks that we've found are usually small, and they're on the ground like cliffs.
yeah,
Um, there's only been 3 instances, and about less than half a dozen instances of seeing something more substantial vertical as an asterisk,
yeah,
right? But it didn't. I didn't glom on at the time that we ran across these as, don't go any further.
hmm
Well, I remember that one time out in Pennsylvania, I caused you some distress because somebody's going, I see something and I got a bad feeling.
Oh,
And
yes.
I just, really? Well, that's what I'm here for. I'm going forward, right? Young and dumb. Well, I wasn't young then either, but
Yeah, yeah. Aren't we all? Aren't we all? Young and dumb, or not so young and dumb. Okay, yeah, you have to check where the trees came from. Yes,
yeah,
if they were natural fall, or if it was physically moved there. Yeah, you're right, Ken.
yeah.
Yeah, you always have to go up to it and check it out personally. You can't really look at it from a distance. You know, you have to see what caused it. Were the trees dragged there, or was it natural from wind or wood rot?
Yeah, well, and you have to step around and look, especially when it comes to wood structures that are not obviously manipulated in the sense of a teepee or
Mm-hmm.
a lean-to, right? Is where did the wood come from? Good point,
Yeah,
right? Same
yeah,
too is, at the Pennsylvania property, there's, you know, shrubs close to the house that are then picked and found deeper into the bush, right?
yeah.
So, and in the Peterborough property, the property owner and I are going, where the hell did this bough, this pine thing come in the middle of the hardwoods? There's not a freaking pine tree or evergreen for the eye to see. And it was it was super long. It was like,
Oh,
10 feet long, right?
wow.
And it was a branch, right? It wasn't the tree, right? It
Okay.
was a branch off of a pine tree, and there's not a freaking pine tree anywhere within sight, you know, and and found, deposited just before the crest of the hill on a game trail,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Yep.
I tornado? What? Maybe no. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Now, do you find very many glyphs?
More in conservation areas as opposed to, say, in wood spaces not frequently, traveled by humans,
Mm,
right? Like, next to railway tracks, like get 50, 60 meters off of that, and not close to human habitation. I've found the odd TP, right? And the
mhm.
odd glyph, but glyphs
Yeah.
seem to be much more frequent in heavily trafficked or human trafficked wood areas.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean where there's sticks on the ground,
Yeah,
manipulate.
that's
Yeah,
like, you get off the trail and on top of a ridge, right
yeah,
onto a game trail,
right.
is oftentimes where you'll find glyphs, and they don't always look like the Wiccan symbols or anything like that, but asterisks and mini
Right.
little TPs and mini arches
Right.
and that type of thing, right?
Now, have you ever found any in the shape of an A where it looks like an A?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, I know they're seen in many places, but it's still a mystery trying to figure out, is it something, I've studied, dug into ancient languages, I mean, the really ancient languages, where they are more of glyphs and hieroglyphics and so on. And, there are similar symbols with different meanings, though. So,
Well,
if
it's
it's
like the what is it? The pictograms of the Asian language, right?
right,
Like,
right,
in Chinese, the symbol for strife is two women under one roof, right? So,
yes,
it stands the test of time, and it has a similar meaning between language groups, whether it's Japanese, Korean, or Chinese,
yeah,
right? You know,
yeah, and yeah, I
um,
was looking at the Chinese language where it was the symbol for a man and then a symbol for a big man. And that was interesting to see, like it gives you pause that, hmm,
yeah,
where,
yeah.
where that may come from. But yeah,
Well,
good.
and it's well documented, like, the indigenous North American um, people found by the Europeans
Yeah,
here. And when I say found, the natives themselves weren't lost.
yes,
um, I think it was the Cherokee that first invented the written language, and that was during the
yes,
Indian Wars. Prior to that,
yes,
there was no written language for that group of Homo sapiens.
yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, plus I think they are a matriarchal society, which is another little tidbit. Um, they have a female as the chief, but yeah, interesting. Yeah,
Well, is it? I think it's elephants. I think that, or maybe I've got the wrong species, but there's one of the large mammals where the female is the guide or the leader.
yeah,
But I could be mistaken that it's not elephant.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a couple anthropologists and primatologists, and I'm studying the bonobos and the chimpanzees and gorillas, and what I know that they have the male as an alpha, but is it really a female who's in charge? Um, I'd have to dig and find out on that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and is it the same with the Bigfoot? Is the female?
Well, there's some West Coast tribes that are matriarchies, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael said.
Elephants are matriarchal. Okay.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Michael. Thanks, Kumbo. So you're planning on heading back to Pennsylvania, you said in over Easter?
Yeah, this Friday.
Oh.
Yeah, so I haven't decided whether to come back Sunday or the Monday. It doesn't really matter. You know, the economy and this BS tiff between me as a Canadian and our rebellious brothers, you, the Americans, right? Is, you know, it's just,
well, you're the
I'm
51st
just
state.
laughing. I keep my mouth shut. You know, I'm just.
You live in
we
our
got a federal election here at the end of the month. If my vote mattered, we wouldn't have it. So,
yes.
you know, go forth and tick the box. And we are the land of the Dominion voting machine. And, you know, so.
Oh, my God. Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Really? They still use them there? Well, hopefully.
At the provincial level, I was speaking with a neighbor of mine. He's you know, an election year for this federal election. It seems they're not using the automated tabulators for the federal one, but the provincial one, you know, and municipal are all the tabulators.
Oh, wow.
And they're the Dominion, but every time I slide my ballot in, I cock my head in my ear to hear if it sounded a shredder or something going on.
Yeah, that and double check. Okay, was it switched? But then you don't know because they switch it later on.
You know,
who knows?
I'll keep it clean, but generally speaking, like there's some consequential elections. I think this one in Canada is not, because there is no real choice, whereas in the last half decade or so in your country, last decade or so, you've had a real choice, so therefore consequential elections, right? But this particular one, it's just same o. You know, all you're really doing is choosing the color and texture of the condom on the pee that's going to screw you anyhow, right? So, you know, maybe you guys will get rid of your taxes, but no such a luck here north of the border. You know?
Yeah, just wait. Yeah, you'll be the 51st state soon, so hey.
Well, I wouldn't consider that sad, to be honest.
Yeah, no.
American television well programmed me back in the 60s, okay?
No, to be honest, I think that our president is a master at trolling.
Yeah, and the leadership cadre of my country is didn't read the art of the deal, and should have, like, my immediate response, like, I understand our former prime minister raised the issue, like, genius, but you know, I would have said, yeah, nice try, Donald, but I think Puerto Rico's waited long enough. However, we too would like to renegotiate your USMCA so that you can purchase our oil at international rates, not the disco one you've been getting since NAFTA was signed, right? Like there's three sides to every coin, right?
There really are.
But directionally, and even when I was a teenager and I saw China opening up, I was like, are you guys stupid? And when I say you guys stupid, I mean all of our leadership and economic powerhouses in any of our countries, you know, Western countries. Like, are you dumb? Right? So I'm 100% for reshoring, you know, manufacturing and industry, right? Yeah. And this little tiff between our countries, like, fine.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the 1800s anymore, right?
No, it'll pass over, and there's a purpose to the poking to begin with, and it'll pass over soon enough. And
I'm not worried about it. I'm going down to like your gas in New York and Pennsylvania is already $1 a gallon cheaper than it was back in the fall. So, good.
All right. Well, come on down.
Yeah. But yeah, no, the next steps for Seeking Ontario is follow up on the odd report that we do get. Ontario is a large province, so a lot of
Oh my, yeah.
reports of activity around Thunder Bay and Timmins and
Yeah.
Kappa Casing. Like there's no possible way that we're able to get up there, right? To take a look, if you will, right? But yeah, it's continue working the properties that we have access to, hoping to gain access to others, right? And try to have fun doing it. That's why I'm not doing audio because I don't find it fun, and I can't find or I'm not creative enough to create some software that can run through 12-hour long audio files looking for something when a wood knock and a tree snap have more or less the same signature, right?
Yeah. Yep. Believe me, I know. Been there, done that. Tedious for sure. Okay, Kumbo.
Yeah, the dead skunk scent, or it smelled like worse than anything I think they do that on command.
Yeah. That's yeah. Have you ever smelled that?
Once out in Short Hills.
Yeah. Now you were out in Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
For a bit, weren't you?
Did you a couple of years with my job, But I commuted back to Toronto to spend time with the family, so I didn't spend weekends in Thunder Bay and go and checking out the sticks up there. And they've got a haunted forest outside of Thunder Bay that has nothing to do with the Bigfoot, right? Where people are reported being knocked off their mountain bikes.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Jeez. Now, have you ever?
But there's enough mysteries out there. I'm just focusing on one. I think the stuff in the sky is sorting itself out next little while.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. Now, have you ever had did you ever want to go to Selinsgrove Lake?
Oh, Snellgrove Lake? I was actually based in Sioux Lookout. I spent half my time either Thunder Bay or Sioux Lookout. And Sioux Lookout is where the seaplanes go to feed all the lakes, including the cabins at Snellgrove Lake. Yeah. Why would you go to that expense and distance when there are other places closer, less expensive, if you will, and likely have a higher probability, right? Like, I don't know how many people are active in this field, but we're more or less a 3-person outfit, and we've got equipment on 3 properties and the ability to do so on a 4th, right? So how many more people are like that? I understand there's a gentleman out of Texas, Logan. He's looking to get access to properties to put up, surveillance gear that's tied to, Starlink and the World Wide Web. And, I've had some initial conversations with the property owner up here, right? But, like anything else, people in their privacy, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a concern. Yeah, I had Logan on here, was that last week or week before? And he went over the security and the privacy issues, as well as, Starlink, where he would provide Starlink to the property owner. And I know for me, the privacy issue would be a major concern, but he was able to assure that that would not be an issue, that
Yeah.
the property owner would have control
Right.
over that.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Let's see. The X isn't meant for us unless it's put up right after we pass through and have to come back the same way, or if it's put on a path we use. Okay, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and in the context of the Peterborough property, it was two of the logs the humans dropped that were used to make an axe, right? So so that was, it wasn't on a path, deeper in. It was more like don't come any further,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's our interpretation of that, but at the same time, that's valid too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The ones that I found, they were maybe about 50 yards off of a trail, but still marking there was some feature nearby that perhaps they were warning about, don't know.
Yeah, like for some overnight vigils, it wasn't a particularly windy night, and then the path coming out in the morning, there's a big tree that's been pushed across it, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be windy for a tree to fall. Into Pennsylvania property, I'm up 12 feet up my ladder servicing one of the cameras. All of a sudden there's this crash behind me, and when I'm out in the woods alone, I spend more time looking behind me and around me than I do servicing the damn equipment, right? Because
Yes.
bear and cougar can get up on you pretty damn quickly and quietly, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden hear this crash, and yeah, I saw the top of one of the trees falling down, right? So and it wasn't windy, do you know what I mean? Like, so stuff happens, right?
It does, but there in particular, they are so active there. You really do have to have your head on a swivel. They come up so close to us there.
My sense of it is, if that animal wants to take you out, you're just another chapter in Missing 411.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, they haven't harmed any of us. While we
and I find the probability in a fairly human trafficked area of them harvesting one of us is pretty low, in the sense that they know more of our behaviors than we do of theirs.
Yeah.
And they see the commotion that happens if they pinched a kid, right? Or, some human being goes missing, right? All of a sudden that environment is swarmed, and a lot of, machines that they may or may not understand, right? Are suddenly in their area, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they that property in particular, they're just other than pelting, not really pelting, but occasionally hitting the grandma with an occasional rock, which I
there's boundaries and boundaries, right?
Yes, and boundaries have to be set. And they have to learn their boundaries, and unfortunately they're really pushing those boundaries there. Yeah, I mean, really coming up to right onto the porch, right up to that screen door, the patio
and
door.
even slapping that front ramp, right? Never mind the house slaps, right? Which I think is not so much the house itself, but it's the actual fence that's tied into one side of the house is what they're hitting.
They peeking in the windows all the times. Let's see. Okay, let's see what if they put an X up after we pass through and return, does that mean get the hell out? And Kumbo answers, Sometimes I think they do it just to let us know they're watching us. Yeah, I agree. It's a little psychological thing there, and they love to mess with us.
Yeah.
Okay, the shizzle. They do that in Micho State Forest. Interesting, because that's where we're going to be camping in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Micho State Forest. Yeah, we're having our camp out April 24th through 27th at
Okay.
Micho. And I can't wait. I've never been there yet, but I've heard a lot of reports, so I'm really looking forward to it. But unfortunately, that's there's a lot of things going on, that particular weekend, and I keep getting divided. No matter what, I'm always planning something months ahead of time, and doggone it, someone else goes and decides to do something that same weekend. It's like, no.
Well, even if it was a homogenous organization, there's always scheduling conflicts.
Yeah.
And this is not an homogenous pursuit, right?
No. Let's see. If it's something large that we have to walk around or step large over, then it's a keep out sign. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
at the,
and that I've not experienced that on the properties I regularly go to. There's,
yeah.
the only example of what I perceive to be the boundary is that that one cedar lot that they were harvesting the trees out of.
Yeah.
Right. I think that was a little near and dear to home. Where that raccoon carcass was found, it's pretty close to what I think might be the pathway out from where they're resident, because they've been on that property at least 3 years.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
They've cleared the deer hunt.
Yeah.
The deer are not as abundant come the fall as they used to be.
Oops.
But yeah, so I'm going to see what type of welcome I create for myself by being that close for 2 nights, possibly 3. And I'll do that later May when I come back from Japan.
Yeah, the Pennsylvania property, they have interwoven the saplings over the paths that we have, back into the, like back to the.
Well, and there was one that was tied across the stairway up to the hunting blind.
Yeah, and literally tied the sapling tips and the tree limbs on the saplings, literally tied them onto the railings going up to the hunting blind.
Yeah.
It just blew my mind. What the heck?
Yeah. And I understand other people have encountered and reported the same thing. Like when the property owner first showed it to me, I was like, that seems very interesting, and I still think, like, in early spring, like now, that's something that could be accomplished by a human being, right?
Yeah.
But to what purpose?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. Kumbo says, pretty sure Bigfoot have a matriarchal society. The female decides where and what they're going to do, and the alpha is in charge of security and enforcement. Yeah, that's whenever you hear the arguments back and forth on the Sierras.
But I'm not and I have. How do they manage their gene pool? Like, I don't know whatever happened to that woman that wrote the book Enoch, and apparently some guy named Mike, whatever, memory slips, and in the bayou and things like that, and this big powwow of them. Like, you'd like to believe, but at the same time, it just begs the probability, if you will. But how do they maintain diversity of genetic diversity, right?
Yeah. I would think that they would have to bring in new blood, new females from different different areas or different tribes, clans. I guess I don't know. Again, that's something I would have to ask with my primatologist friends. About how the chimps or the gorillas or the bonobos, what they do,
Right.
How they bring in new blood, to keep the gene pool from getting a little bit too close.
Well, those we're primates too.
Yeah.
Primates war on one another.
Yeah.
Right? TP
True.
creeping and all of that is not just unique to us as a species, right?
Let's see here. Okay, Autumn Williams wrote Enoch.
Yeah.
Okay, and Gary says the female leaves and goes to the mate's family. Interesting.
Well, that's similar to medieval Europe.
Yeah. Okay, they've asked for more corn in a feed location by putting corn cobs. Interesting.
That is.
Interesting. Wow. that kind of one of those.
Well, in some conservation and then slivers of green belt that run by cornfields, deep in the the pine thickets that often separate fields, we found caches stacked of eaten corn, right? And I don't think squirrels or raccoons get in the habit of stacking like logs. And then in a few cases, possibly humans, bums, feeding off the farmer's field, but in others it seems much more further astray from a human road, right? And then you still find something similar. And in another woodlot, David and Kevin, they found acorns stacked on top of thick branches, but those branches were 9 feet tall. So maybe I can reach and place acorns along a tall branch, but that seemed odd.
Yeah. Wow. Now you said that there's timber wolves up there also.
Yeah.
Have you ever run into one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do tell.
Well, it's the same old story. You're going around the corner, it's coming around, and it took off.
Oh. Yikes. Yeah.
Well, I think if it's a pack and it's hungry, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I think with any predator, if you turn and run, you're in trouble.
Yeah, right? You're prey.
Yep.
You become prey then. Let's see, we've clan rules and forbidden to marry someone of the same clan. Have no idea if boogers do this, but possibly. Yeah.
Like their population enormous, and it wouldn't take too many generations if you look at some of, some older human societies where being inbred has led into, severe mental retardation and physical defects. And it's unlikely that this animal is able to avoid that genetically, right?
Yeah. Get a hold of the
SETIs and modify the code to trigger on audio rather than RF.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, well, yeah, that okay, yeah, that's something I'm gonna have to talk to with Logan also. Definitely.
Yeah, like with the audio, like, what's the famous one, the samurai chatter and stuff like that,
Yeah.
the people were there and recording it. It wasn't like the recorders, as I understand the story, was running and then somebody listened to it, right? Like having, if you're doing an overnight vigil or a day camp, that type of thing, and as it's breaking towards sunset, somebody doing an audio log, right, is so helpful, right? But when you just have devices in the bush and they're recording everything, there's software with the audio moth hardware for like all the known birds and things like that. But I'm looking for something not known, right? And then a lot of the audio that's picked up that is interesting is, it doesn't have a unique signature, whether it's, a pine cone hitting a piece of fabric or, that type of thing. Oh, was that a knock, or did did some animal step on a particularly big branch, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just, whether the wrong person for audio.
Yeah, the way that I used to, after a while of going through audio, this was whenever I was a member of the evidence review board for a large organization. What I learned was to go over it just by putting it up on a wavelength and watching the wavelength. And whenever I saw a blip beyond the baseline, that's whenever I stopped and went back, rather than listening to the crickets, for 12 hours.
Yeah. Well, no, I like using Audacity. You can get the spectrogram, so the whole range frequency, 0 to 20, 30,000, whatever it is. My memory fails me, but yeah, you get to see it all, and after a while, you can see certain patterns. You go, okay, that's the crow, that's the rooster, that's a truck coming down, that's a car, that's a motorcycle, that's an airplane. It's you can distinctly see these signatures.
Yeah.
But you're going weeks and weeks of reviewing, months and months of recorded data. And every site is different, has a different cycle of sounds, right? And then it's seasonal too. Right?
And you don't want one that's close to a road.
But beggars can't be choosers, right? But but it's like trying to automate images, like a software thing, to go comb through all the images as opposed to you. Depending on where your camera's set up, as the sun moves, like if it's taking an image every 3 minutes, every 5 minutes, the sun moves, and you're changing the darkness, lightness of each image, so you can't really compare one to the next, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't get a computer to go flag everything that's different. Well, then they're all different,
Yeah.
you know, except for the ones at midnight, right? You know?
I know there was one time I was listening to audio and I heard 3 bangs and I thought, oh, wow, got something here, you know, and so I backed it up and listened again and it wasn't there. You know, what, didn't I go back far enough? So I'm searching and searching and, you know, and said, what the heck? And, you know, put the headphones back on, 3 bangs. Okay, stop, go back. Nothing there. Turned out my husband was down the basement pounding in some nails. And he came through my sound,
Yep.
whatever it is, headphones. Oh God.
Well, you know, and at least the image viewer I use, I can cycle through and, you know, turn it into a picture show, even though they're individual stills. And it's like, oh, what was that? And then you're just cycling through, and you got to go slow because you know, sometimes it's just that one image that,
Yes.
and it is amazing what the human eye and brain will recognize. And sometimes you're going back 15, 20 images.
Yes.
To find that one that tripped your brain going, hey, there's something odd.
Exactly.
Right?
There's something different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The although, you know, with you reviewing the images, I think that to me would be, oh God, you know, because you have the sun going through, of course, the day and changing the shadows on the trees and the leaves. And so there's something different constantly.
Yeah, you can't automate that. And, you know, you can't develop a software for an animal not known to science. Like I understand a lot of these game cameras will, you know, go through all of your images and just, you know, divert the ones that have a deer or an elk or something known to science on it, right? Which would be helpful. But so often is the case, at least how and where I deploy the cameras, you do get the image of the whole animal, but oftentimes it's obscured by the, you know, a tree in the foreground, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Right. So you know, it's like hunting. You're not seeing this. You're not looking necessarily for the whole deer. You're looking just for, you know, the head or the butt, something that gives away its presence, and then, you know, you move from there. Right.
Right. Yeah. It's you're looking for a horizontal line in a vertical area. Yeah, if it's a deer, of course, you know, or something like that, or, you know, specific movement. But Bigfoot, I don't know.
Yeah. And I like, you know, thermal at night is a game changer. Like the IR binoculars, I think you have a pair. You know, I've got a few pairs. You know, they're like the IR flashlight. It's emitting a glow, right? But what I find frustrating with a lot of supposed images of something, right? They use the color spectrogram, and there's no detail. Like, you know, I always usually run, you know, white hot, so it's a black and white image, and so then you can get detail if you know, of, you know, detail of the body, detail of a face, that type of thing. Whereas if you're using the spectrogram to color stuff, yeah, sure, it looks good for the splash for television, but in terms of anything useful that you garner out of it, outside of the fact that, yeah, there's something that is hot and might be, you know, of hominid shape, it's lost, right?
It really does. Yeah. There's I've got the kind that clips. I've got a couple different types.
Or you got the seat that attaches to your phone.
Your phone. I've got one of those, and I find that a little bit more handy to work with. I think because the screen is larger for one thing.
For sure. Yeah. And I got that handheld I bought, I don't know, 7 years ago, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one of those little handhelds.
Yeah.
But the screen is so small. And but unfortunately, I've upgraded my cell phone, and that clip no longer works.
Oh no.
Yeah, unfortunately, but oh well. Maybe I can sell it to someone who's.
I was about to say, it sounds like a fire sale. Used, obsolete equipment.
Yeah, really, because there's people that still carry that model phone. So,
Yeah.
oh well.
But, yeah, no, it's I enjoyed the pursuit, and it's enough for one person to do it, what I'm able to accomplish each month, right? More hands, the better, but it doesn't seem to be in the cards currently, right? And doing a little, party exploration is fun, right? Especially when when somebody's new to the field and they're really keen on it, right? Like that's those are good times, right? But yeah, it's not. You could turn it 24/7, but as I say, love is grand, divorce is 900 grand, and I'm not going to tank my marriage at 25 years because I'm trying to have an affair with the big hairy scary guy, in his evergreen cathedral, right? So I'm just not going to do that, right?
Holy moly! I know how my husband, he always refers to Bigfoot as oh, you're going out with Harry again, your other husband. So, well, yeah, deal with it.
Well, and at a certain point, at least for how I conduct my field research, the only consumables are gas and batteries, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, digital. We are primarily based on Facebook. We have a Facebook group with almost 20,000 members. And if you are on Facebook, just type in Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, and you can join our group. There's 3 questions, and make sure you answer all 3, and join the group. And if you want to come to our camp out at Misho, you're very welcome, especially if you know the park, because I don't know the park, and I would happily welcome anyone who knows the park. And you gave up Facebook, okay? Tell you what. Yeah, we're primarily based on Facebook, but other than that, we're right here. So let me think. Let me give you my email address. Hold on a second. Try to give you one of my shorter ones because I tend to put yeah, email. Yeah, just type out Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, and unfortunately you have to type the whole shebang out, at gmail.com. Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project at gmail.com. And yeah, just send me an email, and I'll let you know where we're camping at. I'll give you all that information. And yeah, I know it's
I guess the username PABP was taken at the time, right?
Yeah, well, I had to have something that I could put on business cards that people would be able to ascertain, okay, this is for that. I do have like 4 or 5 other email addresses, but they're all for different things.
Different pursuits, yeah.
Yes, yes. Oh, you're welcome, the shizzle. I like that name, the shizzle. The shizzle for life. It's fascinating seeing the usernames that people use on here. It really
Yeah.
is. But let's see. Anything else that you're doing or plan on doing or is your goal?
Well, my goal would be to observe one again, right?
Yes.
But other than that, you meet interesting people. It's creative. It's exercise, right? Yeah, it's fine for now. It's not a burning passion like it once was, right?
Yeah.
But it's something that I still enjoy doing, right? Like, I'm not in it for any money. There's probably money to be made in shirt sales and things like that. And I just, frankly, after 30 years of working, I'm too damn lazy for that. Right? I've got enough energy to go drive 6.5 hours and spend a few days at a place, right? Or, drive a couple hours out and spend, more or less 10 hours out in the woods, come in after it's dark and things like that, right? So that I enjoy.
It's fun. And that's, I think the main thing for me, I even put it in our group motto, is the primary thing, is just have fun, have fun at what you're doing.
Have fun, be safe.
It's a chore, after a while, it just becomes, no, forget it. And, that's.
Well, if any of the audience have friends in Canada, in and around Toronto, Hamilton, that might be interested, but you can find me at www.seekingontario'sbigfoot, all one word, right, .com, and there's a membership page there, right? Or you can email me to the same long string of seekingontario'sbigfoot at gmail.com, right? So, yeah, more hands the better. It's even if they just want to come out once or twice just to get a sense as to, what people like me think are out there and as suggestive signs.
Right. Yeah, I'm putting the links to your pages here in the chat. Let's see, to both the website and your YouTube channel. But yet, people, if you get a chance, get into the website, check it out. Do you have photos and different things in there on the website?
Some photos, like there's, for the, the members, there's a member only page that has, a lot of other, interesting photos of, prints and things like that. But then the YouTube channel, David Andrak, he does, it's, we have to feed him material, which is rough for him to then produce content for the YouTube channel. So there's some, interesting episodes there.
Yeah. And make sure, everyone, that you check out the YouTube channel, because I wasn't aware that you had a video with Marie in there.
Yeah, Marie, we were at the site, and she related what her experience was.
Yeah. I do miss her. Very much.
Very knowledgeable, and good person, but life happens, life changes, right?
Yeah, it did, and it was unfortunate, and it stemmed from getting her eardrums blown out by that the Bigfoot. After that she was afraid to go into the woods. after that.
Yeah.
And it's sad because, like I said, she would have been a prime candidate, a winning candidate for that TV show alone. I would have bet on her 100%, to win it.
Yeah. 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 It's, well, we all get a wake up call at some point in time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we
In
do.
whether you're skydiving, rock climbing, motorcycling, right? Traipsing through the bush looking for what many people think is a mythical beast, right? Sometimes you get a wake up call.
You
right?
do. Yeah. That your health declines for whatever reason and something happens. Because I know, I got that COVID, back in 2019, and
I was so hopeful for COVID that it jumped the species and we just run across a family group of these things, doing the funky chicken or something, or outright cold, right? And I was like, oh, okay, we're done. Now I can go look for UFOs, right? But
nope,
no such a luck.
nope. No, but yeah, it's damaged, me to the fact that I can't do things like I used to. So, but
Well, I'll go and do the field stuff as long as the body and the will is there, and
yeah,
yeah,
same here. As long as I can walk,
yeah.
I'll do what I can. Okay, SETI.
Is search for extraterrestrial
Yeah.
intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, we had an episode with one of the guys here, David Blaylock, where we talked about aliens and things like that. It was just he was a guest on my show here a few weeks ago, and we spoke about aliens, and that was a good episode. Very good.
Well, I read that book years ago. I got to get it back from whoever I lent it to. That's the problem with lending books. Yes.
Yes.
Edges of Science. I think the author was Thomas Powell, and 20 years into I think he was a science teacher, and 20 years into into the field of Bigfoot, and he went from flesh and blood all the way, and crop
Right.
circles and three different species of aliens living on the planet, right? And that's where his pursuit and led him to.
Mhm.
At this point in time, I haven't seen anything spiritual, if you will, or in my experience with looking for this particular animal, right, lead me beyond it's a flesh and blood animal. It may or may not have capabilities that we don't, but it's likely not to have capabilities beyond anything we're familiar with in with the other animals.
Okay.
Right. Like
Yeah.
that's where I'm at right now. I
Right.
remember when I first got in this with I think Peter Smith from Ontario Sasquatch, and I go, well, if it's more than that, I'm gonna have to dust off my science book and hit a lab. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, who knows where you'll be a year from now.
Yeah. But figments of people's imaginations. Do not leave fingerprints, do not leave handprints, do not leave footprints, right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely something there for those that have a belief in the existence of the animal, and there's those of us that have experience of the animal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's plenty of stuff to learn about them no matter what. But the thing is, it's people are a little bit too protective of what they learn. They, different organizations and different researchers are learning different things, but unfortunately, they're not sharing, what they learn with the rest of us. It's all hoarded.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
we pull our information, and that's the thing, we would learn so much more and so much more quickly.
Yeah, like these conferences, I've only been to a few. I was hoping it'd be a more fuller exchange of ideas and thoughts, and at least in terms of field research, techniques and tips and tricks, that type of thing, right?
Right.
Then it's proven to be like, I get people's sensitivity to the subject, especially if it's their property, their reputation, right?
Yeah.
So being coy about locations and the people themselves, right? That's a necessary confidentiality. But in terms of what tools and what tips and tricks that I use and SOB's done in the past, and open book, ask me a question, right? Like, it's not proprietary, right?
Right.
I've got thoughts as to the positioning of cameras based upon what I suspect the animal is detecting, right? But it's just a hypothesis. I haven't been able to, I don't know, right?
Yep. And all I know is we don't know a heck of a lot.
Yeah, that's right. With both Tascam, what Kumbo's saying is correct. Yeah.
I've got a Tascam, and I know a lot of people have the Zoom.
I think Todd is running on a Zoom, and I know David Andrak's got a Zoom, and we've got these audio moths, which are a little mini recorder that you can just screw to a tree, right?
Yep. It's recorded in RAW or WAV format. It's, and I also recommend. For me, it was so much easier to upload onto SoundCloud, and you can keep your SoundCloud files private, or you can make them public or shareable with certain people.
Right.
But I found that invaluable, so I don't lose them, because there's so much I've lost over the years, but is what it
I'm
is.
fast approaching a terabit of images, and I'm not and I don't mean from the trail cameras. Obviously, I got interesting images from those, but just running around and people in a group running around with their phones, right? One structure, 8 images, right? Different angles, perspectives, right?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Up, down, all around, and different perspectives, and
exactly.
Well, does anyone else have any questions or comments or anything else? Clipping segments. That I have an Apple computer, and they've got one of the things that they have on there is Keynote, and I can use some things on the Apple computer, but I'm not real good at it. Once I have it clipped, or even the entire file, I just upload on the SoundCloud. But what about you, JP? You're learning Audacity.
Yeah, I'm learning Audacity so I can, I figured out how I can copy and, save to a different file, interesting segments. I've discovered that you can attach a 1 minute audio file through Audacity on Gmail, but 2 minutes, no go.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like I guess just
Yeah.
very large files, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, what's the interesting, I think you and I, I've, asked over the years, like, does somebody have a real clear audio of a call? And it comes back to is, well, they do, but they don't want to share it, right?
Right.
I just want to see what the damn signature looks like on the spectrogram, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, there's so much stuff out there in the great ether on the internet. Like,
Yeah.
I don't make the time to go and harvest that information or go hunting and poking, right?
Yeah. Well, some of those files, like the clear audio, you would find on SoundCloud through different researchers who've already uploaded. Plus, I know friends of mine on Facebook, which you are not on.
I'm not on Boomer Book. I was just a year away from being a boomer, though.
Boomer Book. You don't care for social media in general?
Not really.
It can be a hassle. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, SoundCloud, you'll be able to find some. There are a few files on YouTube. Let me think. Right now, I'm tired and I'm blanking out on.
Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. It's like
I'll
it's
send you
nice
the
to
channel
have, but
names.
at least going forward, when we're doing night vigils, I'll deploy the audio gear, 100, 200 meters away from wherever we are, right? And then it's a manageable amount of data to sift through, as well as it's likely for, if not all of the night, most of the night, there's an audio log that's being kept, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Lord Cryptid YouTube channel.
Okay.
He's got some excellent audio on there.
Okay.
And
thank you.
And Thinker Thunker. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Thinker Thunker. He's analyzed some. And I know there's one other, and like I said, I'm blanking out on the name. That he has excellent audio.
Okay.
Yeah, just can't think of it. But yeah, Lord Cryptid, I found quite a bit on his.
Yeah. Well, and thanks to Todd and his audio, I have audio of a human being sleeping that I'm going to put on a loop and have that play in my fake tent camp and see what comes in.
Wearing the CPAP.
Oh yeah, you betcha. Like, I don't think the big hairy scary guy knows that those things aren't battery operated.
It's the Darth Vader sound. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Todd. And it's a real interesting sound when the hose pops off.
Whoa.
But Well, it's 10:30, and
Yeah.
we've been at it for 3 hours. So I'd like to thank you, Mary, for inviting me to your podcast, and I'd like to thank everybody out there in the comment section that's taking the time to listen to Summer and or all of us this evening. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I've been wanting, to get you on here. And
Well, this is my first podcast, so
all right.
hopefully I didn't completely tank it or anything like that.
No, not a bit. You may get invites to other ones now.
Okay. Thank you.
But no, I do appreciate it, JP. And anytime you have additional things going on, whatever, give me a holler and I'll get you on, get you back on here.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I think I'll let you go now, and so you can get your rest because yes, you're a retired senior now, huh? No.
Yeah, I waited to my birthday to get the seniors discount at the community gym. Hey, that's how frugal I am. But anyhow, thank you, everybody. And Mary, I look forward to the next chance that we get to meet face to face.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. All right,
Okay.
take care.
Okay, bye.
All right, guys, I want to thank you all for coming on and watching this and participating. We've had a fantastic time. Kumbo, thank you for coming on. I do appreciate you jumping in and sharing your knowledge. Maybe one of these days I can get you on here as a guest. But I know right now you've got a lot going on, and just know that both you and Sandy are in our prayers, as well as there's quite a few other guys here, in our list, including Twisted, a little Twisted, and my sister Debbie. She is also still in need of prayer. There's things going on, but she's doing much better, though. And for those of you who know what's going on, she's improving. It's just fantastic, and praise God for what's going on there. But she has a long way to go yet to complete her healing, and I pray that she'll be able to rejoin me on our campouts and travels and everything else. So that's what we're going to work forward to. Dave, thank you. I appreciate it. Again, everyone, thank you. And we'll be back here again next week. Let me double check my schedule. I don't think I have someone. Nope, don't have anyone scheduled for next week, next Wednesday. So I may pick up someone in the meantime, grab a guest, or else I'll just throw the link out here in the chat, and whoever wants to talk can jump in, and we'll do that again. So thank you, guys. Come back next Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thank you. Thank you, everyone. God bless all of you. And you have a great week. Happy Easter. And have a blessed holiday. All right. Thank y'all. Monkey Wench out.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved